Hello again. Welcome. My name's Scott Kennedy. I am going to talk some Atlanta Falcons again tonight. I want to talk a little bit about the number 4 spot and the Falcons trading out of it. Now, there's been a lot of talk about the Falcons trading down, but they might also have to trade up depending on what they want to get in the draft. If they want to get a quarterback, if they want to get one of those top 3 quarterbacks, they might have to trade up in order to do it. So a couple things I want to talk about. First, let's take care of a little bit of business. One, if you're watching this on delay, on demand, anything like that, please hit the comments. We got over 1,000 views, about 1,000 views the last time we did this last week, and the comments kept coming all week. I'm all over them. So if you have questions or comments or feedback, anything like that, make sure you're hitting the comments. Also, hit that subscribe button. It is a huge help to me as we move this forward and break 1,000 subscribers and do things. We'll start doing more and bringing in more guests and that type of thing. So hit that subscribe button for me. That's a big help. And when you log in here, ask questions. We'll feature you and make sure that you're part of the show. But again, we're going to talk about the Atlanta Falcons trading up or down. What could they get if they're going to move down, and what would it take to move up? You're going to see a trend and a pattern here over the last 5 years for the NFL and big trades in the top 5. Now, the Falcons haven't had a top 5 pick in a while, but they're in that. This is as I mentioned in my video last week, if there was ever a time to have a top 5 pick, this is a pretty good year for it. This is a pretty good year for the number 4. And this season, I think this year, this draft class is a deep one, especially at the top and especially at that primo quarterback position. Now, the Falcons might not need a quarterback right now, but Matt Ryan's 36 years old heading into the season. He'll be 36 before he starts the 2021 season. So it's not far away, So if you're the Falcons and you really decide you want a quarterback of the future, can you wait till the number 4 position? We'll talk a little bit about that. And if you want to maximize your value because you don't necessarily think you've got 3 or 4 more years out of Matt Ryan, these guys are playing longer and longer, and sports medicine's getting better and better. Drew Brees, Tom Brady, they're playing into their 40s. Can Matt Ryan play that long? Maybe. I wouldn't put it past him. So we'll take a look at some of the questions. First off, what's interesting to me is it's like, oh, the Falcons should trade down. Or the Falcons should trade up. Either way, I don't think there's a lot of sentiment for Falcons fans to necessarily trade up. I think that if there's a trade involved, I think most Falcons fans would rather see them trade down. We talked last week that I'm okay at the 4 spot for any one of 4 players, be it Trevor Lawrence, which it's not going to be, Zach Wilson, quarterback Justin Fields, or offensive tackle Penny Sewell. So any one of those 4, I'd be okay. But if the right package comes in, yeah, trade down. So let's look. I want to look back at the past several seasons, the past 5 years, at some of the trades that have happened in the top 5. You're going to notice a pattern here. So there wasn't one in 2020. There was not a trade in the top 5 in the last 2 drafts, actually. In 2018, the Jets and Colts made a deal. And the Jets sent the Colts the number 6 and 3 number 2s. 3 number 2s. The 37th overall, the 49th overall, and then a number 2 in that deal. So if I'm the Falcons looking to trade up, is that a deal I would want to make? It depends on just how badly and how highly you rate that quarterback. Because if you're moving up, you're going to have to take that quarterback. If you want to get Justin Fields or Zach Wilson. No, I'm not comfortable giving up 3 number 2s to move up 1 spot. I think that's a little bit too much. If someone offered me to move down, maybe in this case, it was from 3 to 6, which could be a possibility from 4 to 6 or 4 to 8. Is that something that I would be interested in? Absolutely. So Saint Dragon, welcome. You had a couple of great questions in the comments on the thread. Feel free to ask them again because I thought they were really good. I think you asked me a question about what I thought about mock drafts. Great question, and other things like that. So I want to answer those again. I love this format. I really do. It gives you a chance to show a little personality or charisma and give some context and some tone to some of the things you might say. So again, going back to the question of would I be willing to trade up to guarantee that a number three, that one of those quarterbacks with 3 number 2s? No, that's too expensive for me. Would I take that to move back? And then I might not necessarily get one of those 3 quarterbacks, but I'd get 3 extra number 2s. Yeah. I'd do that in a hurry. 2017, the 49ers and Bears made a trade. And it was and this is what could happen. This could be an interesting one. The 49ers traded the Bears the number 2 spot and moved back to number 3. So they received the Bears number 3 pick. They got a 3rd and a 4th, and then a number 3 that next year. So they got 2 3s and a 4. Is that a deal I would make for the Falcons to move down a few spots? No. I wouldn't. I don't think that's enough to move even just back to the number 5 spot or 6, because I think we'll talk a little bit about this, but I think 6 could be a trading partner if you look at the Philadelphia Eagles. I wouldn't. Would I move up? Would I spend 2 3s and a 4 to move, and especially a 2022 4 or 3? Would I move up? Sure, I would. So I think that would absolutely be reasonable, depending on, again, if you feel that you need a quarterback, if you want to get a quarterback. And we talked last week about all the reasons I think it makes sense to take a quarterback, not the least of which is the franchise quarterbacks are expensive, either in financially and or usually with draft picks, and the Falcons might not get this chance again. So that wouldn't be enough to entice me to move down. But if that's all it costs to move up to guarantee to get Justin Fields or Zach Wilson, yeah, I'd be okay with that. 2016, the Rams and the Titans made a deal. This was a big one, but this was for the number 1 pick. The Rams got the number 1 overall, and they sent their number 1 that year, another number 1, 2 number 2s, and 2 3s. Would I make that deal? Yes. I'd snatch your arm off for that one. You'd absolutely make that deal and move down. Move up for that one, maybe for Trevor Lawrence to the number 1 overall. But no, I don't think the Falcons are in a spot right now where they're giving up basically. That's what they gave up for Julio Jones. And they're in a position to make that type of trade for a player that they don't necessarily need right this minute. So no, wouldn't do that. Would I do that to trade down? Yeah, with anybody. I'd take the number 32 pick for that. I'd take 2 firsts if they were in the back end of the first for 2 firsts, 2 seconds, and 2 thirds to move out of the 4 spot. And finally, also in 2016, it was a busy one. The Eagles sent the number 8, a 3rd, and a 4th, and then a next year, a 2017 first to the Browns for the number 2 pick. So they spent a lot to move up, an extra number 1 and 2, and then a 3rd and a 4th. So basically 4 extra picks to move from 8 to number 2. That would be an enticing move as well. Now, I mentioned at the beginning here that there was going to be a pattern. There is a pattern with all those. See if you can find it. With 2018, 2017, 2016 picks, there were 4 trades where a team moved up into the top 5. Guess what position they all took? Quarterback. The Jets took Sam Darnold with the number 3. Didn't like that pick at the time. I didn't have him as a first-round grade. I thought they overpaid 3 number 2s. But again, that's what it costs if you're going to move up in the top 5 to get a quarterback. And then the Bears in 2017 took Mitch Trubisky out of North Carolina with the number 2. The Rams have spent a lot on quarterbacks because they sent that big package to the Titans to draft Jared Goff, number 1 overall. And finally, Carson Wentz, the Eagles, and that all those teams all of those picks went for another quarterback. So in all those positions, and then going back just a little bit farther, this one actually bled into the 2015 season when the Redskins sent 3 number 1s to the Rams to draft RG3, Robert Griffin III. So that was it's the key here is it's going to be really expensive if you're going to move into the top 5. You're taking a quarterback. The Falcons are already in the top 5. So what's that mean to me? What that means to me is if they want to get one of those three quarterbacks, they might have to draft up. They might have to trade up. Why? Because I think it's certainly conceivable that the number one and number two are going to be quarterbacks. I don't think that's a question. Number three, if you look at the Miami Dolphins, I'm not convinced the Jets don't take a quarterback at 2. Miami Dolphins, if we look at them at number 3, everybody's saying wide receiver for them. You don't sit on that spot if you want to take a wide receiver unless you're Thomas Dimitroff. I don't think there's any way they stay in that number 3 spot. So going back to the cheap trades, what I say, would I take a third, a fourth, and a third, so 2/3 and a fourth to move up. I don't think that will be enough to move up from 4 to 3, because someone is going to offer the Miami Dolphins more than that, whether it's the Eagles, a number 6 and then a better package, or say it's the Carolina Panthers with the number 8 and a better package. I don't think it's going to be that cheap for the Falcons to move up from number 4 to number 3. So to get out of that number 4 spot and try and get the type of value that they're going to want to try and get one of those big packages, what do they have to do? If one of those, if those 3 quarterbacks aren't available, what do they have to do? They have to start talking up another quarterback. They have to start convincing people that Mac Jones. I've got the Wilson kid from Florida State, defensive lineman. I like defensive line on my head. And you go Mac Jones, Alabama. You go Trey Lance, the other quarterback that you're looking at to try and get. And I've seen those guys start to go at number 4 in these mock drafts. I don't think the Falcons take those guys at 4, but if you've got a quarterback desperate team and you want to get the most value for that pick, you've got to they're going to trade up and get a quarterback. You've got to convince people that a quarterback is for you. So Miami's going to have trouble with that, but they're in a better spot with the number 3 pick than the number 4, because there's 3 big-time quarterbacks in this draft right now. So will we see some smoke screens out there? Of course, it's the draft. They lie so much they call it coach speak. They don't even call it lying anymore, bluffing. This is worse than a poker game. So will we start to see some of that? Absolutely. We absolutely will. And then, again, and what happens, it may be best case scenario for the Falcons is if the Miami Dolphins do something stupid, like sit at number 3 and take a wide receiver. Terry Fontenot, the new general manager of the Atlanta Falcons, is going to sound like an auctioneer at that number 4 spot with one of those 2 quarterbacks still on the board. He's going to have one of those Zoom calls with 12 people on it, and they're all bidding for that quarterback spot. And why I say it's stupid, listen, you draft best available player, draft for need, that's fine. I'm going to go back a few years. If I don't know how many people are old enough to remember when Ricky Williams was coming out of Texas and Mike Ditka was in love with him, he'd already basically said, I'm going to trade our whole Saints draft, all of it. All I want is Ricky Williams. Come draft day, 1 pick, or I can't remember if it was 1 or 2, but the Colts took Edgerrin James ahead of Ricky Williams. That was the dumbest pick I can remember it for a long time. Why? Not because of the player. Draft who you want. Trust your evaluations. But if you can get the player you want and pick up extra draft picks, do it. The Saints were willing to give away their entire draft. You could have moved down a spot or 2 and still gotten Edgerrin James and picked up 4 or 5 picks. That was moronic to do. Edgerrin James turned out probably to be the better player. So your evaluation was spot on. Great job, scouting department, but you could have done a better job as a general manager. And that's what I say for the Miami Dolphins sitting at that number 3 spot. If you want Jamar Chase or you want Devontae Wilson as a wide receiver, as a big play wide receiver, great. But you don't need him at number 3. You can come down a few spots, even to that number 6 spot, and make a deal with the Eagles. That makes so much sense. And if you make a deal with the Panthers, then that makes sense to me as well. At number 8, you might lose. So for then, if you're playing poker in the Miami Dolphins, then the question becomes, are you willing to possibly lose Chase and Devonta Smith, but maybe get Jalen Waddle and 3 other extra high picks? Yeah, that sounds pretty good. Let me ask. Let me hit up Saint Dragon here with a question he has. He said, would you be happy if the Falcons traded down, drafted Trey Lance in the 1st round, and got an extra 3rd in the process? That's not enough. That's not enough for me. If you were to come out of that spot, even to the number 6 spot, I just mentioned the Eagles as a possibly a trading spot. So even just going down 4 to 6, it's going to cost me more than a third round pick. I'd rather have Penny Sewell at 4 as an offensive tackle than I would have Trey Lance and a 3rd round pick. That's just me. But again, that's on my evaluations. Now, if I'm Terry Fontenot and the Atlanta Falcons staff, and I've got Trey Lance sitting there, and I really want Trey Lance, and I think he's going to be the guy, and I'd be willing to take him in the number 4 spot anyway. Yeah, make that trade. But I think you can get more for that. That wouldn't be enough. If you heard the list of deals that it took to trade into the top 5 and get a quarterback, the worst of those deals was 2017 when the 49ers and Bears changed places, and the 49ers got 2 3s and a 4 out of it, minimum. And I don't think that's enough. I don't think that's enough to move back. So would I be happy with Trey Lance? Sure. I think that'd be a great fit for him to come in and sit a little bit, face a higher level of competition in practice. That'll be the best defense he's ever faced, even just running a scout team. That I think that would make sense. If you want Trey Lance, fine, but you're going to get more out of that number 4 pick. So again, that's not necessarily about the evaluation. That's about what else? What else can you get? So I think it makes sense for again, going back to the Dolphins, they've got to trade out of that spot. They just have to. And your 2 possible partners for trading then are numbers that make the most sense to me are the Eagles at number 6 and or the Panthers at 8. Now, if the Eagles move into that spot in the 3 spot, then the Panthers are just going to start. They might think they need to move up. There aren't too many deals like that happen within the conference, so I think that'd be an awkward trade partner with the Falcons and Panthers. So that would be a little tough. Now, let's take a look at what could be available to the Atlanta Falcons if they do. And I'm going to shoot. I'm not going to shoot for the moon here. I'll use the Colts, the Colts Jets trade of 2018 as a starting point here. And welcome. I see a few more of you are starting to pop in. Welcome. Please hit the comments and ask questions. I love the interactivity of this. That way I know I'm talking about what you want to hear instead of what I think you want to hear. I'm not a psychic. I prefer a Q&A format. So hit the comments. I'll pop them up on the screen and we'll start talking about them. But I'm going to go, what could the Falcons get if they traded down and out of that 4 spot? And I'm going to take a look at, like I said, the Colts and Jets. In 2018, the Jets moved from 6 to 3. So the Colts were the Falcons are the Colts in this scenario. They moved back from 3 to 6, and they picked up three 2nd-round draft picks in the process. 2 that year, they ended up with the number 6 pick, the number 37 pick, which is pretty close to where the Falcons are picking, and a 49 pick. And then they picked up another 2nd rounder in 2019. So to me, that's what it's going to cost for the Falcons to trade down. And if you look at some of the players that they could do, if you move down into that 6 to 8 range, now you're talking about a best player available position of need, and I think you're looking at corner. You're looking at possibly Patrick Surtain out of Alabama, maybe Caleb Farley out of Virginia Tech. Any farther than that, and the Broncos are going to draft that one of those 2 at number 9, and they may anyway. But now you're picking up some extra 2nd-round picks. And you can start addressing multiple positions of need. Maybe you package 2 of those 2nd rounders, jump back up into the 1st round and get Najee Harris and shore up your running back spot where there's a big hole right now. And it's been, frankly, a sore spot for the last couple of years since when Devonta Freeman was really playing well and got that big contract. It hasn't been a great position for the Falcons the past couple of seasons. Najee Harris would fix that. He'd fix that for at least the next 5 years. Would that be worth 2 number 2s? Maybe. Now, when I see I think the Falcons. I don't know. I think this isn't a crazy take. This is pretty obvious. When you cut $12 million of safety out of your 2020 team, and Ricardo Allen, and not cut because Keanu Neal's a free agent, they're going to need at least two safeties. Now, I wrote an article on allfalcons.com last week about three safeties that could be available in the third round. And it might not be, I don't know that two of them might be gone by then, but I think the three. But if you're sitting there with a couple extra twos, then a couple safeties that you want to take a look at. And what's nice about this is you might be able to get your free safety and strong safety, because these safeties are all a little different. But I'm a big fan of Hamza Nasruddin, and he's ranked beginning of the third, middle second right now, according to NFL Mock Draft Database, which I like because it's a composite. But he's more of a strong safety type. I talk about wingspan a lot. He's 6'3", 6'4", and has almost a 7-foot wingspan. And I watched him blanket tight ends. He's just versatile, and he comes up and he hits like a truck, so he could handle that Keanu Neal role on second round, third round money. And then if you look at the free safety spot, there are two other players in there that are ranked right there in the beginning of the third round that would definitely be available if you traded back and had a couple extra picks. You could get one of these two guys for your safety role, but Richie Grant out of UCF. I was a big fan of his at the Senior Bowl as well. He was terrific in coverage, and there's not a whole lot of hitting that goes on in practice. It's just for safety reasons of football. So I don't know that it might not be the striker that Nasruddin is, but he can certainly cover. And then the third player was Richard Lecount out of the University of Georgia, another safety. And he's ranked a little lower. He's ranked towards the end of the third, so he should be available for the Falcons in that third spot. And if you go back almost a year ago, people were talking about him being a first-round pick. And I don't know why he necessarily dropped off, because I kind of joke about a guy like Richie. If you look up football player on Wikipedia, there's his picture's right there. I mean, this is a guy, he reminds me of a player like Tyrann Mathieu, the Honey Badger, who isn't going to be a standout in any way on any of these combine drills. Not all that big, not all that fast, not hugely athletic, just makes plays. The kid just knows how to play football. So, if I'm trading down with the Atlanta Falcons, and I come out of this, with Najee Harris, a number one. If I come out of this with Patrick Surtain, Najee Harris, and a pair of safeties, I may have just gotten 4 starters, 3 of them on defense, and revamped and set up my secondary. That'd be kind of scary with a young secondary that young. So you're going to need to hit the free agency for some veteran leadership. But you're coming out of this with 3 out of your 4 positions of the future in your defensive backfield. And I really like that. Now, a couple other players that could be available. And now, unfortunately, while this draft is high in skill positions, it is just dreadful on the defensive line. Before we get into that a little bit, I want to hit up another question from St. Dragon. He's got a couple of them in here. I'm not an Atlanta fan, but I think the Falcons need talent on defense. I'm thinking edge quarterback, but might be wrong. What defensive players do you like? Luckily, I answered a few of those. And I will go into defensive line right now because absolutely the best pass defense in the world is a quarterback on his butt. You put pressure on the quarterback. Your four in the secondary just got a lot better. And the Falcons don't do that. The Falcons haven't gotten pressure with their front 4 in a while. It's been a while. And they're not doing it right now. But the problem with this draft is that the defensive line is it's a weak group, and you don't want to overdraft a guy because he's the best of a bad group. There's a saying that coaches use in recruiting, and this isn't much different, is that it's not the players you miss that kill you. When they go somewhere else, I wanted this guy. It's the players you get that can't play. So it's okay I didn't get the guy I necessarily wanted, but I got somebody else that's a good football player. Then you're okay. When you spend draft picks on guys that just flat out can't play because you're reaching for a position to fill a need, and that's where the best player available starts to become a cliche, then that's what and the problem is there's just not a great on the big men, the defensive tackle position. I like Christian Barmore, the out of Alabama, 340 pounds. You put him next to Grady Jarrett, I'm really happy. I'm really happy. So if the Falcons were able to spin an extra first-round pick out of this draft, and maybe they're in the late teens or 20s, I think that might be just some pick. I also like on the defensive line, I like Carlos Basham. He's a little bit of a tweener. He's playing about 280 pounds. I watched him at the Senior Bowl lineup at nose tackle, or not nose tackle, but defensive tackle and end, a hybrid in there. So it gives you some versatility as a defensive coordinator, which Dean Pease, the Atlanta Falcons, will love. And but again, to get those guys over positions of dire need, like center right now, Falcons don't have a center, and 2 safeties. Those are dire need. An extra corner, those are must-haves where they've got bodies at least under contract at the other positions. But I agree with you. A defensive line is still my, and that's why I'm going to apologize to Thomas Dimitroff right now. I think I try and I take a shot at his 7v7 philosophy every video or every talk show or radio show I do. Because the Falcons just ignored is a strong word, the trenches. And the game is won in the trenches. It still is. If you cannot protect your quarterback, it's more of a passing game now, but if you can't protect your quarterback, or if you can't knock the quarterback down and put pressure on him with a front four, you can't win in this league. You can't. So I agree. I want to see the trenches. So speaking of trenches, the Falcons, if they trade down and pick up some extra picks, a couple guys that could be available in the trenches. A guy I like on the interior line, and actually did take some snaps at center, is Creed Humphrey out of Oklahoma. Big kid. And like I said the versatility as well. Trey Smith played a little tackle, played a little offensive guard at the Senior Bowl out of the University of Tennessee. A position not necessarily of need, but if you end up with an extra second-round pick, how about Dylan Moses, linebacker out of Alabama? I like the Falcons on the defense. There's one position that's set. There's one position that's set in it's linebacker. So I don't necessarily think that's a need. Now Floyd just came in and he says an edge or cornerback with the first round. I'm okay with that, but Floyd not at 4, and it's something we talked a little about a little bit earlier. Is if you're at the number 4 position, I don't think any one of the big 3 quarterbacks are going to be available. I think the Dolphins will trade out of that 3 spot, and Justin Fields, Trevor Lawrence, and Zach Wilson will go in the first 3 spots. That leaves the Falcons sitting at 4. In order to get maximum value for that pick, they're going to have to trade with somebody that wants a quarterback if they're going to move back. In my draft, in my video last week, talking about who should they take it for, I think your left tackle, Penny Sewell, is head and shoulders. I think, I could be wrong. We're all wrong, but I think is a legit franchise left tackle. You're set there for the next dozen years. And if you don't want him, or you get a deal that you can't pass up, then you move down. And in this draft, Floyd, excuse me 1 second. In this draft, Floyd, that is just barren of defensive linemen, I think then if you move out of that top 5 spot, you go with someone like Patrick Surtain or Caleb Farley at corner. I absolutely agree with you. I would love an edge rusher, would love one. I would love a defensive tackle. But the best one on the board right now is probably going to go in the teens to 20s. In Barmore out of Alabama. I'd be happy with him depending on the package that they get for him, but I'd also be happy at number 4. I'd be happy at number 4 with Penny Sewell. Anything, if I'm not going to get one of those 4 guys, I want to move back. And if the package is good enough, like 3 number 2s, then move back and let's just start loading up. If you're the Falcons, let's just start loading up. But again, going back into this, the Falcons have to get safeties. We talked about 3 that could possibly be available. Richie Grant, Hamilton National Dean, and Richie Lecount in the third, late second, third round. So if they pick up some extra picks, I think you take 2 of those guys. It's not and going back, I want to do a video, and y'all let me know in the comments what you think. Just like an all-time Falcons best Falcons of all time. Safety's hard. When have the Falcons had a good safety? I was like, after 2 years, I'm like, Keanu Neal might be the best safety the Falcons have ever had. And then he gets injured a couple times. Paid him a lot of money and didn't get. He showed so much promise. I started thinking, I'm like, well, who's next? Eugene Robinson in 1998, Man of the Year, gets arrested the day before the Super Bowl. The night of the Super Bowl, and it was probably real early in the morning, so it was probably the day of the Super Bowl. After that, Scott Case, there's an age check for you. How old are you guys? But it hasn't been a position of strength for the Atlanta Falcons. So we don't necessarily need to get spend a high round pick on a safety, but we've got to come out of this draft and free agency. Falcons got to have 2 safeties, have to, and maybe Keanu Neal can be had at a discount, because they paid him a lot of money to do injured reserve the last few seasons, and he wasn't the same guy this past season. So hopefully 2021 would be the year that he becomes fully healthy again, and we get to see the real Keanu Neal, because he is a special player. He is a special player. And then if you can never have enough offensive linemen. You can never have enough offensive linemen, and I mentioned a couple I like. Creed Humphrey, interior line. Another one I like that you gotta look for. It would be a lot different going from Alex Mack, 37 years old, to David Moore out of Grambling. David Moore is freaky, and he's just about this much taller than me. About this much. I'm sitting down, so that doesn't mean anything to you. But I'm 6'1". He's 6'1.5". Give him 6'2" in shoes. And after I saw this measurement, I went and measured my wingspan, and it was like 73 inches, which is 6'1", 6'2", which is just about normal. His is 7 feet. It was like 83 and 7/8. This guy has arms, so he can block a guy on the edge after he snaps the ball. He can snap a shotgun. Like, it's crazy, and he's nasty. So I like David Moore as a guy that you maybe get at that center position with, again, a couple of these extra picks. So if the Falcons are going to trade down, it's got to be a package that's going to get them 3 or 4 extra players, because the Falcons aren't one player away. They're not. They may have been one player away the year they drafted Julio Jones, but we spent all that on the wrong guy. It wasn't. And don't get me wrong, Julio Jones, I think, is going to go down as the greatest Falcon of all time. Period. But he wasn't the guy the Falcons needed after giving up 50 points in the playoffs to Green Bay and not even force them to punt. And you're going to spend 5 picks on a wide receiver? Really? So I digress. We'll talk about that. We'll talk about that on another day. C. Glenn, I think Neal becomes more like himself after a year. I do too. I do too. Especially for a skill player, and he's had multiple injuries, but an Achilles or an ACL, those are 18-month injuries for skill guys. For offensive linemen, they're 6 months, but a quick twitch guy, corners, running backs, safeties, slot receivers that rely on that change of directions, it's 18 months before you are 100%. And part of it's mental. Part of it's just being able to trust yourself coming in and out of those cuts and not trying to protect yourself. So I do too. And C. Glenn, I would love to see Keanu Neal be able to fit under the cap somehow, some way. I would love to see him back. I don't know. And the Falcons might throw a franchise tag on him. They might not, because they've spent, about $25 million on him in the last 5 years. He's gotten paid. The man has gotten paid. And I would love to see him come back. Floyd says Keanu Neal linebacker. And I mentioned this safety out of Florida State, Hamza Nasruddin. And let me double check. I'm going to pull up his video real quick, and I'm going to share. And while we're watching this, in the wrong window, apologies for my technical deficiencies here. That's a tight end he's covering. He's 6'3" with arms that are in the 6. And again, running with the tight ends, he's taller than the tight end. We talk about matchup nightmares, and watch, like I said, will he come up and support the run? Will he come up and support the run? Watch him come up here. Now, they had to stay up. Boom. But Missouri running back, he wouldn't stay on his feet in a real game there. And I love his ability to just blanket a tight end. So, he could absolutely be an outside linebacker type, an up-in-the-box safety, a Keanu Neal replacement on second and third round money. So this is a guy I'm really high on, and I mean, he's huge, but he still moves in coverage and can absolutely blanket a tight end. So one of the players that I'm very interested in. And, Floyd, I agree with you about Walker, and I love the Falcons linebacking core. Deion Jones is phenomenal. He's phenomenal. His partnership, I call his name copy and paste. I have to read it. His partner's at 100 tackles too, and then Mykal Walker comes in and is really good in coverage, which is so important these days. But in the back. In the Falcons 11 on D, the linebacker core looks good. It looks good. So, I wouldn't want to. The one guy that's up there in the draft that I wouldn't necessarily want is Micah Parsons. I'd take him. Don't get me wrong, but I don't want the Falcons to draft Micah Parsons. Of all the positions they need, linebacker isn't it? Just about any other position except wide receiver and linebacker. Oh, Lecount, thank you. Yeah, I have to spell it out. I call some of those guys copy and paste. That's how do you spell his name? Copy and paste. But that's it for me. Those were most of the things that I wanted to talk about tonight. I appreciate you coming on. Be happy to stay and chat. Any questions or comments or discussions that you might want to have, I'd be happy to stay on. Otherwise, as I mentioned at the top of the broadcast, please hit that subscribe button on the channel. It is a huge help for me, and hit the comments. These things are fairly evergreen. We'll be talking about this several times, and I'll answer questions on this for as long as people are asking questions on this. So hit your comments when you're watching this after the fact. Please do, and I appreciate everybody for coming in and watching live and participating in the stream, because it just makes it more fun. So thanks to all of you that were involved tonight, and I will see you again soon.